Hi class, how are we all doing today?
Great.
Good. Okay, picture this. It's July 1st, 1992 in Levittown. My Uncle Chris was 21 years old. This unfortunately was his last day on earth. He got into a terrible car accident and tragically died. My Uncle Chris was in great shape, he was healthy and young, and he was not an organ donor. On my survey, 50% of you said that you were not an organ donor, and 75% of you said that you would not consider it. If you were to have a family member, a parent, or a friend in serious need of an organ, would you consider it and try to tell your peers to become one as well? One of you also said on my survey that my parents told me to become an organ donor, so that's why I am. I can say the same. My father always told me to be one after the passing of my Uncle Chris and my grandmother, who was able to donate both of her eyes. He always told me it was a great idea to be an organ donor. I truly believe organ donation can save a life, even if yours is taken away. Today, I would like to persuade all of you why being an organ donor saves lives, it is free to register, and your organs can be utilized and not go to waste. On my survey, one of you said being an organ donor would mean nothing to you, and 75% of you said not everyone should have listed on the driver's license that they are an organ donor. And for that 25% of my classmates who said being an organ donor means nothing to you, I hope after today's speech you all change your mind. To begin, organ donation literally saves lives. According to the American Transplant Foundation, on average 20 people die every single day from lack of available organs to transplant. Also, one deceased person can save up to 8 lives through organ donation and can save and enhance more than 100 lives through life-saving and healing gift of tissue donation. Now, you can imagine how many people that could save on a daily basis just from being an organ donor. In an article written by Michelle Spinagli, Become a Donor and Save a Life, in 2017, she says, donors have the ability to save up to 8 lives. That includes the heart, the eyes, the kidneys, and more. Can you imagine how many people that would help? Now, you may be thinking, what if I get sick or I'm in an accident? Will the hospital not try to help me since I am an organ donor? That is never the case. According to Mayo Clinic, the website states that the hospital is strictly there to help you. They are focused on no one else but helping you get better. To add, in an article written by Kristen Long, when operating on dead people saves lives, benefits of surgical organ donor in Testivitz, in April 2015, she said, solid organ transplantation has emerged as a life-saving treatment for many patients suffering from end-stage organ failure. While the volume of patients on the transplant waiting list continues to rise each year, the number of organs donated falls far short of the number needed. So basically, we need more organ donors than we have now. Being an organ donor is basically, if you were to become an organ donor, this would benefit the number of people who are waiting for a transplant. This argument may seem like being an organ donor is basically saying that someone is waiting for you to die, but that is not true. According to the American Transplant Foundation, a healthy person can become a living donor by donating a kidney, a part of a liver, a bone marrow, or an intestines. You can be an organ donor even while you are living, and not only does being an organ donor save lives, it is also free, and we all love something that is free, don't we? When I received my license in 2018, I signed up to be an organ donor, and it cost me $0. You can visit your local PennDOT, or you can visit your local driver center and register there, or you can go online and search how to register to become an organ donor, or go to penndot.com and you can sign up. All you need is your name, your birthday, and your license number. Could it get any easier than that? It makes you feel like you're doing something without doing anything at all. Your healthy organs can go to someone in need. Now, in case you need to renew your license sometime soon, so in an article written by Douglas McKay, he basically says how easy it is to register to become an organ donor if you need to renew your license. So in an article written by Douglas McKay, The Ethics of Organ Donor Registration Policies, Nudges and Respect for Autonomy, in 2016, he says, opt-in requires people to actively register as organ donors, for example, by signing an organ donor registration card or checking a box when renewing their driver's license. So that is how easy it is. You can go in and you check a box, it's free, and that's how you can sign up to be an organ donor. So not only is it free, but if you aren't an organ donor, your healthy organs would go to waste and not be utilized, and here is why. In my attention step, I spoke about my Uncle Chris and how his organs were not being used. My grandmom, on the other hand, was able to donate both of her eyes. Now, I don't know if any of you recall the story about the dad who rode his bike across country to hear his daughter's heartbeat and another man, but I would like to explain more of that today. So I'm going to talk about Abby Connor, who tragically died over a winter break in Cancun, and all of her organs were donated. In an online article written by Jennifer Earle on June 21st, 2017, called Dad Bikes 1,400 Miles to Hear Deceased Daughter's Heartbeat on Father's Day from CBS News, she said, "It had been 5 months since Bill Connor suddenly lost his 20-year-old daughter Abby and felt like he had something to do to honor her short life. She died over winter break in Cancun in a resort pool, and she was found unconscious alongside of her brother. And she unfortunately died, but her brother didn't, and she suffered irreversible brain damage. Abby was an organ donor. Abby's heart was donated to a man named Jack Jr. from Louisiana because his heart was failing quickly. He had suffered a heart attack, and he had about 10 days to live. And Abby donated 4 organs to males ages 20 to 60, her father said, along with her eyes and tissues. Connor then rode his bike from his hometown to Florida to hear his daughter's heartbeat in Jack Jr. So basically, the story of Abby was she was an organ donor, and after she tragically had died, her dad wanted her body to be put to use, so her body was then sent to Fort Lauderdale, where her organs were utilized and they didn't go to waste, and Jack Jr. is alive today because of that. And I would also like to recognize an opposing viewpoint. I would like to acknowledge that some of you may agree that being an organ donor is preparing for death or preparing for when you die, but I would like to argue that that is not true. A man named Thomas Zeradsky wrote an article called Organ Donor Registration Policies and the Wrongness of Forcing People to Think of Their Own Death. In 2016, he writes a passage that I would like to read today. Forcing someone to think of one's own dead body may cause stress that limits the basic cognitive processes, affects problem-solving and decision-making capacities, and may lead to worse decisions from the personal perspective of an agent in comparison to decisions that are not forced by policymakers and made after proper consideration. So basically what Zeradsky was arguing is that it is too stressful for people to become an organ donor because they are thinking of their death or what is going to happen to their body after they die. But that is not necessarily true. Being an organ donor is not solely based on the fact of preparing to die, but just having preparation for that. Anything can happen at any time. Also, to add, you don't need to be deceased to be an organ donor. You can still donate a kidney, a part of your liver, or your intestines or bone marrow. And to add, people like Abby and my grandmother were not necessarily preparing for death, but their organs were utilized after they did pass away. So to conclude, I persuaded that other 50% of you today that organ donation saves lives. For every 1 deceased person, 8 people can live and 20 people die due to lack of organs every day. It is free, it costs no money to register, and people like Abby and my grandmother were able to help others since they were an organ donor. And I hope today's speech persuaded that other 50% of you to become an organ donor. You have the ability to help someone even when you're alive. My Uncle Chris could have saved a life. Become an organ donor. Thank you.